Ladies and gentlemen, we stand here, I think, at an extraordinary moment in time for the energy sector. We're in the midst of a revolution in energy globally and very clearly in the midst of a revolution occurring right here in Australia. There are numerous drivers for that energy revolution, and the first one is obviously this country's commitment to reducing our emissions by 26 to 28% by 2030. The Paris commitment was very, very substantial, and I think whichever way you look at it, we need to fundamentally change the way we produce electricity in this country. But I think whether you agree on our commitment to Paris, whether you believe in climate change or not, there's another very, very significant driver to the transformation of the energy sector in Australia. The reality is that the vast majority of our coal-fired generation that we've relied on for much of the last century is old, and it's getting older. It is starting to close down, and just like an old car, the older they get, the more expensive they come to run, and the less reliable they become. The reality is, whether we like it or not, we are going to have to replace these generators with new forms of energy generation. The good news is we have some of the best renewable resources in this country from anywhere in the world. Large-scale solar alone has incredible potential in this country, and what we've seen over the past just few years, a lot of it actually driven by ARENA and the incredible work that ARENA has done to support this technology, has meant that the cost of this technology has gone from several $100s only 5 years ago to now well under $100 to produce power. That's created a very, very dramatic shift in the economics of energy in this country. And we know now, if we're building a new power station, the lowest cost form of power station to build in this country is a wind power station or a solar power station. That's an incredible transformation that's occurred in only the last few years. And I think what's all the more remarkable is even when you account for the cost to firm, the cost to dispatch that power, these power stations continue and I think will only become more cost competitive in this country. But there's another element to the energy revolution that's taking place here in this country, and it's driven by average Australians living in average homes in average suburbs around this country. We all know that there's now over 1.7 million Australian homes that are powered by rooftop solar. We all know that many of those 1.7 million homes are now looking at smart ways to use their electricity. They're all looking at ways that they can store that electricity and send it to the grid at times where it can provide greater value to them and indeed to the system. All of these changes mean that in this country right now we've got over 17% of our power coming from renewable resources. We have a long way to go to fully decarbonise our electricity sector. But what we know is there is extraordinary momentum in clean energy in this country right now. We're seeing an unprecedented level of investment in large-scale renewable energy right around this country. Over 40 new wind and solar projects contributing over $8 billion worth of investment into the Australian economy, delivering over 4,000 jobs into regional and rural parts of this country. This is truly an unprecedented level of investment in Australia's energy system, and it's coming from private investors putting their own capital into these projects because of the bipartisan policy support around the renewable energy target. If ever we need to understand the impact of long-term policy certainty and bipartisanship on investors in the energy sector, this chart shows it more than anything else. When the moons align, when there's policy certainty, private investors will put significant capital on the table to change the Australian energy system. Of course, the way we generate electricity is changing. It's changing very rapidly. And what we know is that our energy system was designed around a 20th century model. Large centralised power stations sending electricity out to customers. That's all changing rapidly. And what we know, and indeed the chief scientist knows, is that we have the technology and the solutions today to be able to manage our energy system, to be able to take advantage of those renewable resources, to be able to deliver a secure, a reliable and a low-cost power system for this country. We now need to accelerate the reforms to do that. We now need long-term policy settings far beyond 2020. And if we do that, I believe we can manage the transition of the Australian energy sector. We can deliver a reliable, a secure and affordable power system, and at the same time leave a planet for our children's future. Thanks very much.